Here in the Mara at a crossing that I don't think any of you have ever seen, at least during this migration. Welcome to Chitwa crossing, where the poor little wildebeest is desperately struggling to get across the river. This is Safari Live.
Ready?
A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to a somewhat early sunset safari. And we started it just so that we could catch the last few moments of what is a particularly dramatic crossing out here in the Masai Mara. And of course you're watching all of this live, and I'll explain a little bit more in a second, but let's just watch, because these are the last two, the final two wildebeest to make their way across. Come on, little one. You can do it. I don't know what happened to the one we were watching earlier. I'm hoping it's made it out okay. Now they've got to face the slippery rocks of Chitwa crossing. There you go, well done. It's been raining a lot over the last few days. The river is rough. The rocks are slippery. There have been thousands of wildebeest crossing here today. Come on, you can do it. Oh, it's so slippery. It's not an easy task, especially when you've just swum through rapids. Now, all of this is happening live, and this afternoon on our sunset safari we will be bouncing between here in the Masai Mara of Kenya and of course across to Djuma and the Sabi sands in South Africa. So you're in for a truly extraordinary experience. You can do it quickly before the crocodiles come. I can't see any big crocodiles at this particular crossing. Perhaps this is why they've chosen such a difficult spot. Come on, you can do it. I know you're tired. I know you're tired. I'll show you in a bit the rapids that these wildebeest have just circumnavigated. Come on, up you get. Quick, quick. Your back foot is still in the water. You never know what's lurking. Come on, up you get. Karen, you say these rocks are vicious. I'm going to show you the rapids. Yes, yes, yes. In a second, once we've watched this wildebeest. Come on, you could... Oh, there we go. Not the most graceful experience, but you've done it. You've done it. Well done. Stiff and cold and very tired. But the worst part is behind you, Wildy. And up, up, up. If you keep going, you're going to find a couple of thousand herd members to greet you. Up you go. Off you go. Well done, Wildy. You got up a little bit. You still got it. Come on, quickly, you're being left behind. Shame. Poor little thing. There he goes. I'm sorry, I know we haven't done any of the introductions or anything like that, but this is far more important. There we go. It's going to be absolutely fine. Up the banks and rejoining the rest of the herd. A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie. This afternoon Fergus is on camera with me, and we are sitting at Chitwa crossing, which is right up in the northern part of the Mara Triangle, and there have been crossings here apparently every single all moments of today. Now, because this is live, it means that you can send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend the entire afternoon, or at least as long as we can, here with these wildebeest, because they're crossing from this side, from the western side. Scott is across in the National Reserve that is off to my right on the eastern side. But at the same time, on the other side, there are thousands and thousands of wildebeest. So that's the eastern side, and that's where our group of wildebeest just came from. Now, there's a whole other group gathering on the opposite side of the bank, and this is where the migration gets confusing. We're going to try and stick with them and see whether or not there are any more large crossings. So while we do that, we're going to send you over to Tristan so that he can say an early afternoon.
Hold on, spiderwebs. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari. I do apologize about a few spider webs that are over the lens. I was trying to get rid of them, so hopefully they're all gone now. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Craig, aka the Batman, and we are coming to you live from Djuma as Jamie is in the Mara with her crossing, and what an epic way to start. Now remember, this is a live safari, so we can chat to you guys, and you guys can ask us any questions that you would like to answer, well, to ask us, and answers that you would like to receive, and you can do that by hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube chat. So that's how you get hold of us, and hopefully there will be lots of questions coming our way for an epic afternoon. We've started off with a bang with a crossing in the Mara, and I think Tara's going to try and see if she can't follow up on those mating leopards from this morning, which will be wonderful, and I'm going to try and see if I can't continue on my search for the Nkuhuma Pride. So that is the plan for this afternoon. Hopefully we will be successful. I'm also going to take a little loop around where Shongile was left this morning, because, well, she's such a pretty little girl, and it's been a while since I've seen her, so I would like to catch up with her again and just see what she's been up to and how her time has been. So that's what we're going to do. It's a beautiful day at Djuma, though. We've got a little bit of cloud, but not too much. The sun is shining, it's fairly warm, and it is the most pleasant way to spend an afternoon. In fact, if you're on a safari now, this is the best temperature you could ask for in the afternoons, because it's not too cold, it's not too hot, and it is perfect conditions for the animals to be out, such as the impalas, which are on my left hand side. Now they're still in the shade at the moment because it's a little bit on the warm side still. They'll be using these shady areas to feed and to get nutrients, as well as for a little bit of shade to get out of the sun. When the sun is beating down at 12 o'clock in the day, it's not very pleasant, so they go into these areas and they sit on the fringes of these big open clearings, and as it starts to get on in the afternoon, so we're going to find these guys coming out of there and into the open areas. Now there's a couple males here, so it's all a bachelor herd, which will be from the rutting season. That's where they will be so many of them together. And when it was rutting season, the bachelors get pushed out by the more dominant male, and they join together for safety in numbers. So that's why it's not uncommon to see a whole bunch of male impalas together. And whoops, there we go, running off. Now we're going to carry on our mission and go and see what else we can find, as I'm sure there will be many an impala on our way. And while we do that, let's go across to Dr. Tara, and so she can say hello.
Hi everybody, and welcome on board this afternoon, and I'm hoping you have heard we had a fantastic sighting of leopards mating. It was Tingana and Tandy, so we're not too far from where we left them, but if you were lucky enough to be on board with us live, then you would have known that he dropped us a present, so I'll go into that a little bit more detail. But as Tristan said, my name's Tara, and joining me on camera is Senzo, and I'm hoping we might have some spots this afternoon, fingers crossed. But what I would love to do is actually pick up some of the dung. I'm going to bring a little piece back so you can have a look, but we are doing, or there is actually a research project here in the Sabi Sands on the genetics and the fathering or parenting of the cubs here. So they're actually trying to work out who the fathers are and who their cubs are, and see if there's any I want to say extramarital affairs, but they're not. It's not really. Leopards don't really mate for life, so we tend to think that one male will mate with the female, and whoever we've seen the female with, they tend to be the father of the offspring. But what's coming through now is potentially the females might have 2, maybe sometimes 3 males who might mate with her. So that's what this research project is looking for, to look at the genetics, and we're using the dung to actually do that. Now, we were lucky enough to catch Tingana actually defecating on the road, and that is very normal for leopards to do because they're very visual predators, and they like to leave their calling card where other leopards cannot miss it. So that's right out in the open. Any other leopard coming through here, they'll see that and they'll go and investigate, and obviously get all the chemicals that are with it as well. So we actually have a little pack here. I've already filled all the details out for them, and as I say, if they really want, we've actually caught it live on camera, the actual male who left it, so I'm sure they'll be very happy with that. So we're just going to go and grab a piece. Now I am going to only grab a small amount, so I'm just going to put enough in the tube, just so that there is still going to be something left for the other leopards to find. So I'll bring some back for you, so if you come back to us, I'll be able to show you, open it up and show you what's in there. But I think there's some wildebeest for you to see, so I'll catch you in a little while. Bye for now.
And we are up at the top, away from the crossing, and we've caught up with the wildebeest that made it across the Mara River. And we've been following this lost little chap to see whether or not it manages to find mum once again. It's always slightly upsetting to see them afterwards, because in the chaos they invariably become separated from their mums. There's another lost little one. Keep calling. Can see it calling. Call for your mum. And just like with most animals, mothers will recognize the individual sound of their offspring, even though it sounds exactly the same to the rest of us. They recognize it's as individual to them as a mother's child is to a human being. Keep calling, come on. I know there's a lot of wildebeest here. This is the equivalent of losing your mum in a really, really big grocery store. After, you know, life or death struggle. So maybe not quite the equivalent. Stopping to take a bit of a break. Of course, the heartbreaking thing is not every mother makes it out of the river crossings. Not every calf does. Where's your mum? I was thinking about it yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I've lost track of days. Is that your mum? Is that mum? Don't know. No, clearly not. I was thinking about it yesterday, but it would be the most extraordinary thing to follow one, okay, I admit it probably would be impossible to do. Follow just one wildebeest calf or one zebra foal through the migration from Tanzania. Follow it every day, figure out what it does. I don't know, you'd probably have to collar it. And I'm not sure. I think you'd learn something interesting from just about their movements, because the wildebeest have all crossed over the Mara River into the Mara Triangle, and now a whole load of them are crossing back. And it seems so pointless, but there's meaning to what they do. There must be. Come on, little one. Keep calling. Keep calling. Somewhere, hopefully, in the thousands of wildebeest in front of you, Mum is waiting. That little one on the right is having a rest. Exhausted after the struggle. There you go. Go join the rest of the young ones in your herd. You'll be okay there. Quick sniff to see if this is Mum. Not sure if it is Mum, but it seems to be tolerant enough. There you go, little one. You settle there. Have a rest, regain your strength. Aaron, having watched that crossing, you want to know how many wildebeest will be injured by sharp rocks when crossing. I don't know, I suppose it depends upon where they cross, but I imagine quite a few of them. They are very agile creatures, despite you'd sort of think when you look at their sharp hooves that wouldn't be very good for balancing. But we of course know that not to be true. You get those goats that climb up almost vertical dam walls and cliff faces. So a cloven hoof does actually work quite well for gripping, and their toes can splay to help to provide them with a little bit of extra balance. But those rocks, I mean, there was no way they could make their way across those rocks without falling. It's slipping. They were so clearly so slippery, so I imagine it's actually pretty common. I'm not sure though exactly what the statistic would be. I couldn't give you a quantitative answer. Lots, I imagine. It's the most astounding scene out here. Right up in the corner next to the airstrip, the Chitwa airstrip. And the rest of them making their way back towards a further river crossing, but to go the other way, not the way that our wildebeest have just come. A little bit earlier on, Ferguson arrived and I arrived here about an hour ago, and they were all massing on the bank to go the other way. Now they seem to have changed their mind. Let's see what they decide to do throughout the course of the afternoon. That's not a wildebeest. That's an elephant. We were watching them chase the wildebeest round earlier. It was quite entertaining. Going back to our sad scene of earlier, leopard mother, you would like to know about our poor little wildebeest calf. And remember, we don't know that it's orphaned yet. We do know that it is looking for mum, but we don't know that it could easily find her. I don't know where it's gone now. I've lost track of it. But leopard mother, no, another female will not adopt a wildebeest calf. They are very much bonded and, what's the word, and actually quite possessive over their own calves. And I've seen the odd wildebeest butt a youngster that got her confused with its own mother. So no, they don't adopt them. Cases of adoption in animal societies are rare. It does happen, but it is unusual. And particularly in something like an antelope species. They're just streaming in. And they don't seem like they're moving fast, but they just keep coming. Oh, there it is. No, that's not it. Noel, you would like to know about our little calf and whether or not it is old enough to eat grass yet. I think that's it there, Ferg, that the other wildebeest are kind of stepping around. If you look a little bit to the left, or that might just be another wildebeest calf. I have to be honest, I have absolutely no idea how to identify them, but I think that's it, and I think that its companions just moved away. Now, Noel, it's absolutely old enough to eat grass. It's fully weaned, and it will be able to survive, even if mum isn't around. It'll be fine, and you can see it's actually sitting ruminating as we speak. So in terms of keeping itself fed, it will be fine. It'll stay together with the rest of the herd for as long as it can. And let's put it this way, it certainly will never be lonely. I'm pretty sure that's it. Pragmatically taking a moment to ruminate. I suppose I also wouldn't want to face the horrors of the Mara River on an empty stomach. They've just crossed from east to west, and this stream of wildebeest moving behind it are now aiming to cross from west to east. Strange. Massing slowly but surely towards that other crossing. I wonder whether or not this little one will be dragged along back across again. Or if it will decide to stay, or at least the herd will decide to stay in the Mara Triangle for a bit longer. Or will it be forced to face the gauntlet twice in one day? In the confusion of herd movements. Backwards and forwards. Okay, little one. Good luck. I hope you find your mum. We're going to go and find a good point to view the crossing a little bit further upstream of where we have been. And speaking of seeking things, it sounds as though Tara is seeking her area of expertise.
Oh, welcome back everybody. And we're just along Triple M at the moment, just seeing if we can catch up with our mating cats from this morning. It is quite warm now, so I'm not holding out much hope, but I just thought maybe it's worth checking out, see if we can find any tracks. I think I've got some fresh tracks, although Tingana was all over the whole area this morning. He was on his own little mission. He would literally put his nose to the ground and look like a tracker dog, and he was just doing circles the whole time, and Tandy, it was all she could do to keep up with him, and she kept sort of parking off and just waiting for him to move on from that area. So it's quite difficult to see, but I think we found some fairly fresh tracks heading east along Balanites Road and then heading north, so we're going to double back and have a look around there. Possibly there's some alarm calls that Tristan's picked up further north around Gallagher Shortcut, somewhere there. But as promised, I did pick up the scat, so I've saved some for you. As I say, we've got to be very careful because there can be some bacteria in the scat. But if I open this up for you, that is leopard scat, and it can be quite difficult to tell the difference between caracal and lion, and you tend to go off of the size of it. But the contents, you know, for those 3 cats can be pretty much fur, and that's what we've got here. We've got some pieces of fur in there. There's a little bit of sand that got mixed in, but otherwise plenty of fur. I'm not seeing much in the way of nail, but sometimes you do get the nails because it's quite difficult to digest the keratin, but there's not much in there at this stage. I did leave the rest of it for the other leopards to see as a calling card, but just quite interesting to see what is there. So I look for the diameter of the scat, and it's roughly around the 2 centimetre mark for a leopard, a little bit smaller and shorter for a caracal, and generally a lot larger for a lion. But then obviously you've got to remember there could be cubs around, and sometimes some of the big male leopards could look like small lions. So that's why it's not an exact science, so you do have to do the genetics on it to really see. And I remember there was quite an interesting paper when I was at a conference in Kruger talking about scat, and they thought they'd picked up some eland scat, and it actually turned out to be ostrich, which was really bizarre because unfortunately I'm probably not going to be able to show you the 2 types, but ostrich are quite big and they've got a bit of white in there as well, which is very characteristic of bird scat. But the actually I might have a pellet for you here. So if you look at the giraffe scat, the eland can look very similar to the giraffe scat, so there it is there. So similar in size. So to actually pick it up thinking it's eland and it's actually ostrich, then that's got to be some really strange ostrich dung that got left behind. But as I say, it's really almost an art understanding what the scat, and so you have to kind of put everything together. So looking at the tracks, looking at where you are, the behaviour of the animal as well. So even the professionals can get it wrong sometimes. But I thought that'd be quite nice to show you, because I say we don't often get a chance to play with the carnivore scat. Because as I say, you'll see we'll quite happily pick up the herbivore, but the carnivore does have the bacteria, so we do have to be quite careful. So we're going to carry on our search, so let's see if we hit it lucky. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'll throw it off as we pass the rest of the scat again, so I'm not going to confuse the matters. That could be quite fun. But I think we're going to see if Tristan has anything interesting for you, and hopefully he's found where those alarm calls are coming from. Keep your fingers crossed.
Well, I haven't quite gotten there yet, Tara. I'm hoping that there are some, well, there were some baboons alarm calling, and it sounded like somewhere near Vulture camp, but the guests are still inside the lodge, so unfortunately for now, I can't get there just yet. But on top of that termite mound, we're not just admiring the view that is the northern side of the firebreak, but there was a dwarf mongoose that was somewhere there. It's now disappeared, unfortunately. There was just a little head sticking up with 2 little ears, and unfortunately it seems as though it's gone deeper into the mound to get away from us. I was hoping that the dwarf mongoose, because they generally are quite inquisitive, curious animals, that they would decide to come out, but alas, they've decided to go back into the mound instead. So we shall carry on our journey. I'm sure there will be another dwarf mongoose to be seen as we meander our way around. Now the thing about baboons is that their alarm calls, while they are useful, generally are a bit of a problem because their eyesight is so good. So a baboon can see a very long way away, and if it's up in a tree, it could be spotting Tingana and Tundi down by Philemon's cut line or something like that, and we sort of driving around close to where they are and not really finding anything. But it's worth a try to check. We know Shongile was around this morning, and she was between sort of Gallagher Shortcut and Aubrey's, and then you've got to wonder where maybe Thamba has gone, because I'm sure Thamba at some point was with Tundi, and maybe she left Thamba around the dam area, and we'll be able to find him somewhere there. So that's what I'm thinking. It also could be that they've seen the Nkuhuma Pride from the dam area. They did go past there, so there's a number of variables, and worth us having a little look and checking what's going on. But I didn't find any tracks for Shongile crossing back from Aubrey side over Gallagher Shortcuts. It seems as though it was just hyenas that were walking there, and I do apologize, a bit of a bouncy camera as we go through that dip. It was a lot more rocky and uneven than I expected. I'm just checking carefully, just in case one of these leopards maybe walked up this way. You never know. This is an area that they like to walk a lot. There's lots of drainage sections. That is perfect conditions, or perfect habitat for leopards to walk. So we need to try and see if there isn't one there. I'm also hoping that birds will be out this afternoon. This morning it was a little bit lackluster with birds, which was a bit disappointing. I always enjoy doing birding, and this morning just seemed as though it was quite quiet on the birding front. Now, talking about birds, there already is... Oh no, don't fly away. Of course you would fly away. My bird flew away, unfortunately. So, David, I'm going to get to you now. You were asking if Tundi is pregnant. Sorry, there was a black-headed oriole that just flew away. I'm going to try to see if I can't find it again. But you're asking if Tundi is pregnant, will she kick Thamba away? Most certainly. Once she feels as though she's pregnant and her belly starts to swell, and she'll know straight away that she's pregnant, then she's going to start chasing him away for sure. But when they mate like this, sometimes Tara and I were actually discussing this today, and we're having a bit of a chat over breakfast. Unfortunately, our oriole is flown off. But we were just chatting about leopards and mating behavior outside when they still have a dependent cub, and it's actually quite common. I've seen it in most of the females that I've been fortunate enough to follow. So even the females down in the south of the reserve, so Scotia female, Wilson's Pan, Outcrop, they all also used to practice this. They used to mate every now and then when they had a dependent, and I'm not sure what the exact reason is. I hypothesize, which is just a theory, it's not fact in any way, so don't quote me on it, but I think it's something to do with the fact that the males move around, and the female, in order to just keep that male happy, sort of presents herself and makes sure that he knows that she's a viable option for mating and not something that he should be attacking or chasing or trying to hurt in any way. So it's almost like a false estrus that just fools him into it. The other side of it is also in a case like what we have today with Tundi and Thamba and Tingana, is that Tundi is now shifted way out of where she normally was situated. With Karula's absence, we've got Tundi now coming up towards Gari Dam and up into the central parts of Djuma, which typically was not an area that she inhabited. And so I think what she's trying to do is she's mating with Tingana as almost if to say, I am now the female in this area, I'm a viable option for mating. If you find me outside of my normal range and in this area, I'm not a threat in any way, and one that she could then, basically be safe under that area while Tingana moves around. So I think for me that's probably more likely than her actually being an actual estrus, but it's not uncommon for it to have happened that she might come into an estrus early and that she might kick Thamba away at an early age. Right, I believe Jamie, which I'm hoping has got her fancy hat on, is sitting contemplating the wildebeest, contemplating the river crossing.
I do have my fancy hat on indeed, Tristan, and thank you for calling it a fancy hat. It's very hot today, and it's not too windy, which means that the fancy hat can actually be worn. If it's too windy, then the fancy hat goes flying, or else when I'm driving really fast, it does this, and then I can't see anything. But we don't have any of those situations at the moment, so I can wear the fancy hat. Back to our wildebeest contemplating the river. I don't know exactly what's going through their minds. I mean, I've said that a lot recently. I've got no idea what goes through the mind of a wildebeest. Perhaps complex quadratic equations? Maybe not. A little bit of quantum physics? The secrets of the universe? They don't seem to want to cross the rivers. That much I can tell you. I have no idea whether this group was already on the side of the river or if they've crossed during the day. It really is a bit confusing at this side. Every herd of wildebeest seems to be going one way or the other. Now, this would actually have been a far better crossing in terms of ease, but apparently there is a massive crocodile here. And what I don't want to do is drive too close to the edge, just in case we discourage them from their process moving towards the water. But apparently there is a monster croc in this particular section of river, and that's why they haven't been crossing here. Because if you look over there, it's the perfect place to exit the river. No having to scramble over rocks or up, okay, a little bit over rocks, but not nearly as badly as the side that we were at earlier, but a little bit downstream of here. I think I might return back in that direction, because this is what river crossings are all about. There were probably, I would say, a good, let's not exaggerate, a good 1,000 wildebeest that were gathered together looking as though they were going to cross, and then 12 came across from the other side, and that was that. And they all dispersed and off they went. Where are they going? There's just these lines of animals moving. Where are you off to? To the greener grass on the other side. Not these guys, though. These guys are having a break. Now, Roshni, I can imagine you are confused, and I probably haven't explained it very well. So Roshni is confused about the east to west and west to east, and a bit confused about the way that the migration works. So the wildebeest and the zebra never go necessarily across the river just once during the migration and then a second time on the way back. What they'll do is it depends on where partly at least, or mostly, depends on where there's been rain and where there's nice good grass for them to eat. And what will often happen is wildebeest will cross and then cross back again. So they'll go from east to west, west to east. Bear in mind, a great number of these wildebeest have actually come just to the south of me. So actually, technically, they're coming from the southwest. They've come from Tanzania that way. A number of wildebeest have come up this way from Tanzania, a little bit further that way to the southeast. So it kind of creates these, they don't move in one big herd and all go across the river and off they go. It kind of creates these tidal movements with little eddies of wildebeest moving in one place around the grass there, and then a couple of thousand coming along from here, and then the others decide actually the grass is better there. So you've kind of got to think of it as an intricate and probably actually quite carefully choreographed dance, even if it's improvised. And they're following the rain and the food and the grass. So that's why it's getting so confusing, and that is where we end up with more confusion as the zebras lead the way down to the water's edge. And as we know with crossings, when one goes, they all go. Let's go and get a better view. Now that they've moved that way, I'm not worried about blocking them. And let's see. Most of the time, I would say a good 70% of the time, the animals get to this point and then they go away and they change their mind. They see a crocodile, they see a hippopotamus, they see a bird flapping, or the water splashes too hard and they decide, actually, no thank you. Right, what is going to be our best view? I think this might be. I apologize for my squeaky steering wheel. I know it's squeaky. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Fergus, this hasn't worked, has it? Here's some beautiful raisin bushes. That's not what we've... I'm scared of the bank collapsing underneath us. Let's see if we can... Let's just... How's that, Ferg?
Go for now.
Let's give it a go for now, agreed. It's not going to be the best view in the world, but I can't really drive over the eroded areas just to get us a better view. That would be poorest guiding at its absolute worst. Oh, zebra kicking each other and fighting. Zebra are horrible to each other. On our way out here, as we were coming down the mountain, Ferg and I witnessed two zebra have a fight for absolutely no reason except, I don't know, maybe one of them insulted the other in their body language, or perhaps they were just having a bad day. But the sounds of them kicking each other and the impact of their hooves and then the bite to the chest, it was just, they really are horrible creatures to each other. Oh goodness, goodness gracious. Could I edge... Yvonne, although I've said that the zebra are actually quite horrible to each other, the one thing I've noticed is they seem to approach these river crossings with slightly more of a tactic in mind. They seem to dodge the crocodiles better, and they don't seem to trample each other in the way that the wildebeest do. they probably do it though. And remember, there's so many more wildebeest than there are the zebra. It probably happens just more commonly with the wildebeest. But the zebra seem to avoid that situation, but there's not as many of them. Okay, now we really are looking at a potential crossing here. We need to fly across to the other side of the river, don't we? That, unfortunately, as fantastic as my off-road driving skills are, we are not going to be going across the river. You thinking of putting our nose in here? I think so too. Where our almost camera setup happened. There goes a story, and I'm sure it's happened many a time, where an over-eager guide, desperate to get the best view of a crossing, has parked too close to the banks, and the banks have collapsed underneath them, and they've gone tumbling into the water with the zebra and the wildebeest. Ferg, there's some raisin bushes here. What if we went to the other side of the wildebeest? I wonder. Thinking of looking down that way. That might work. Can't see what the coverage is like there. I don't think there's a road that goes that way, so I can't. At the moment, the zebra are just drinking, and the wildebeest are watching them as if to say, "Oh, is it time to cross already?" Lou, please can you try that question again? Lou tried to read me a question, but it got a little bit tongue-tied. Louise has had a very long, very hard week, but she's the only one in final control apart from Kirsty, so they've had some long shifts. Debbie, so you're saying they move by committee decision rather than one individual leader. Did I get that right? Did I understand that question correctly? And Debbie, yes, essentially they do. And it's interesting to watch, because as soon as one wildebeest is brave enough to take the plunge, the rest will follow. And what often happens is the reason that wildebeest has taken the plunge is because the pressure from those at the back has just forced them to. They're being pushed towards the river to the point that they just have to they have to jump in or risk being injured. They basically get shoved into the water. But yes, it is essentially I don't know if I'd call it a committee decision, because a committee implies some sort of thought, or does it? No, I would say it's just some kind of natural instinct that spurs them on, and that herd mentality. It's a very nice image, Ferg. I know it's into the sun, but the elephants walking through the herd. And potentially chasing them as well. There we go. And we, of course, have spoken a lot about the fact that the elephants tend to move out of an area when the migration arrives and up into the hills. And that is the case. We haven't seen nearly as many elephants, but that doesn't mean they don't still make the odd appearance. And this lot have been enjoying muddy water around the river. The zebra have finished their drink. They've moved off. And as a result, they have left the wildebeest leaderless and confused. They just wanted a drink. The wildebeest thought it was time to cross, and now they're confused. No, okay. All right, we're all going back again. All right, everybody, back up, back up. No, we're not crossing now. Everyone back up. And back we go again. This is pretty much what sitting manning the river cam crossings is like. Oh, look at that little one, Ferg. That's it there, staring at you there in the middle. That's a really tiny wildebeest. That's a latecomer. Sweetheart. Off you go. Now is not your time to have to cross. From an animal that is perhaps not gifted with beauty, let's go across to one that is.
Stand by. Over there.
Well, this is not one of the birds that we see that commonly out here. It is one of the roller species, and we normally see the lilac-breasted roller with its beautiful bright blue wings, but the purple roller is not as common for us. We don't see it nearly as much, and you can see it's battling a little bit in the breeze that's blowing this afternoon, having to use that tail to try and stabilize itself as it perches there. But these purple rollers, it must be the same ones that we see quite regularly around quarantine. We're just on the southern side of the dam at the moment, and I'd imagine that it's one of the same that flies around that area. And fortunately, it's just flown away slowly. But the reason it's called a purple roller is because of that very purpley tinge that it's got. It's got the lilac body and then sort of deep purple wings that come off on the side. So nice to see one, and nice to see it out in the open, and at least it was obliging enough to sit and let us have a little look quickly, which is good news. Now, I still haven't found any signs of baboons just yet, so I'm now checking a little bit further south of the dam itself, just to see if maybe they went between Chelapan and the dam. I heard them from quarantine side, and they sounded a little bit far off, so I didn't get a great idea of the direction, and I'm trying to wait for Aubrey and Tux to get going so that I can ask them while they were at camp if they managed to hear what's happening there and whether or not they actually heard the baboon's alarm call. So we'll just check Vulture's nest quickly, see if there's not any sign of them there. If there's no tracks for baboons or anything like that, then we might just do a different route and go up towards Cheetah Cut Line, check that the lions haven't crossed that way, and then slowly come back towards the dam a little bit later this evening. I think that's going to be our modified plan. What do you think, Craig? No. So when Craig agrees, he just goes, no. So that's how I know Craig's in agreement with our plan for the afternoon. Now, I believe Tara has managed to find the smallest of our antelope species out here, so before it runs away, let's quickly go across to her.
Yeah, Tristan, it's so true. These ones do tend to run off just as soon as you go live. But this is a Steenbok, and it looks like a small family actually. We've just seen a female and a youngster. They've headed a little bit further into the bush than where we first found them, but at least they haven't completely run away. So there's the little female, no horns. The little male was the first one you saw on your screen, and then it looks like their son is off somewhere else. I missed where he went, but you could just about see the horns starting to come through. So very typical, they will form a pair, and they can defend the territory against other pairs. You can see that red colour really blending in quite nicely with this time of year's colours. Actually, it looks like, yeah, the little youngster is there with the father, I think. Now remember, we are live. We have absolutely no idea what's going to be found today. But if you'd like to join in, oh look at that, that's beautiful. Ah, and there's the little one, just behind him. But if you would like to get in touch with us, ask us any questions or interact, send comments, then send them through to #SafariLive or on the YouTube website as well. Now you might have noticed them occasionally just rubbing the stalks of branches, and they actually have a gland just in front of their eye called a preorbital gland, and that produces a secretion that they can actually wipe on branches to mark their territory. And they're quite fussy little eaters as well, so they do have to pick vegetation of very good quality. There you go. You should be able to just make out that black mark just in front of the eye there. That's the preorbital gland I was talking about. They said, oh, I'll have a nibble and then I might mark the territory at the same time. You can see those ears also quite large so they can detect any predators. And Paula just asking if they have great hearing. They do. Remember, they're in the thick bush, so they need to be able to detect predators because they're not going to be able to see very far, even though they've got good eyesight. But you can see that they're quite a small antelope, so they really are at a disadvantage. If you look at where the eye is compared to the grass, so it's often falling below the height of the grass, so they do need to have some other way that they can detect predators. And what they do is they actually freeze if there's anything moving around, in the hope that it will just blend in. And unfortunately, if the predator gets too close and there's nothing else they can do, they'll wait until the last second and then they'll dive away, and they hope that that split second is enough to get away, because the predator might just go, "Ooh, what was that?" And that just could mean the difference between life and death for this little antelope. Hi, Jason. Jason asking how long Steenbok, their gestation period is. And I'm a little bit scratchy on that. I think it's probably about 4 or 5 months, but if someone wants to check up on that for me and send your answers into #Safari Live or YouTube, that would be great. Say, unfortunately, numbers like that, if I don't use it, I lose it. But yeah, I think it's around the 5 or 6 month mark. Absolutely lovely. And nice to see that they're actually chilling for a change. Now you can see how far they're in the bush now. We've pulled back. So it's still quite far. But at least they're nice and relaxed now. Oh, so we're going from the smallest antelope to one of the largest herbivores on the planet with James. I'm sure he's going to enjoy that one.
Well, yes, a largish herbivore, certainly at 2.5 tons, it can certainly be thought of as bigger than average. Hello everybody, and late start for me here, the river camera and control desk. Very warm welcome to all of you. We're looking at a slightly less warm welcome in the water there. The Mara, only about 25 degrees Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit out here today, so not very warm at all. Completely live, just like Jamie and Tara and Tristan, #Safari Live if you'd like to ask us any questions, or you can use the YouTube chat function. That will work just as well. Now the hippos here having a little bit of a spat, don't really understand why it is that they've been left completely in peace, with the wildebeest having moved far north to run the gauntlet of the river. Why are they doing that? Well, as Jamie's just said, no one really knows, to be sure. So we've got hippo here, and then we do in fact have very large, or even larger animals at Main South. Can we go and have a look there? Is that possible? Is it possible to go? There we are. Well done. Okay, so now we have an elephant. And the reason he's not looking in the highest definition at all is that he's just a little bit of distance away from the camera, so I've had to zoom in as far as possible, and that does reduce the quality slightly. There he is. Oh, he seems to have a rather swollen belly there, and he's definitely a he, so I don't know what that is. Enid, you say, do elephants cross the river? They do. And the most interesting thing we've seen crossing the river this week has been a giraffe. In fact, a few giraffe. So I didn't know that they did that. We know that the lions definitely also cross the river because we see them with their muddy paws. often from the balloon after they've just got out of the river. We've seen Scarface, the big male lion, with his gammy left hip. Is it his left hip? No, his gammy back right foot. Gammy back right hip. He definitely crosses the river. We've seen him on both sides. We've seen the paradise lionesses on both sides. And so, yes, elephants will cross, lions will cross, giraffe will cross, topi, wildebeest, zebra, Thompson's gazelles. I've seen impala massing. I haven't seen them actually take the plunge, though. So I think that's probably about it. I don't think the rhino cross. I imagine the leopard could definitely cross. They're adept swimmers, so that's possible. And possibly the odd bushveld gerbil. I'm joking about that. I'm not sure if bushveld gerbils cross the river at all. And you can see not a sausage of antelope or zebra action there. Everything is up around where Jamie is, around Chitwa Tembo, which is way north of this position here. They will be back here. It does not mean that they've left this area and then they won't be coming back. All it means is that for now they're up there in the north. And just behind this crossing, yesterday Jamie and I spent a huge amount of time. Oh, there's a nice heron. Let's have a look at that. Spent a huge amount of time looking for lions in amongst enormous herds, probably the biggest ones I've seen. Is this a grey heron? It looks like it might be a grey heron. Oops, the daisies. Hold on, everyone. There we go, getting in closer. It looks like a black-headed heron, actually. No, it's not. It's a Goliath. Is it? Yes, it is. It's a Goliath heron. The colour is not fantastic. There we go. This is a monstrous fellow. That's very special. Huh. Wow. That's really cool. Look at his head, poised to stab a fish. Stab, stab, heron. Very unpleasant if you happen to be a fish. Wonderful. Okay, well, let's wait and see what this heron does, what he's going to stab. While we do that, Pajamas, way up in the north, would like to show you some death.
I don't want to show you any death, although I suppose that's inevitable when showing a skull. We've got, I would say it would be a safe assumption that this was not placed this way by either hyenas or, in fact, the natural death position of the hippopotamus. I would say that this has been carefully and somewhat artistically placed by a human being, but it is quite a dramatic image. Even though he's missing most of his tusks, a hippopotamus mouth. And of course James has got his hippo skull reproduction in his studio. That one looks as though it's bored with all of the proceedings. And of course behind it, thousands and thousands of wildebeest. I wouldn't go so far as to say hundreds of thousands, but thousands and thousands. I wonder where they're off to. They don't seem to be planning on crossing the river anytime soon, but they are streaming in from the south of us. Excuse me. Now, Paula, you'd like to know if there are other animals that migrate in numbers like these gnus. This is, in terms of mammalian migrations, one of the largest, and it doesn't just include the wildebeest, although the wildebeest are by far the most numerous. You're looking at around about 1.5 million wildebeest and a couple of 100,000 zebra, depending on which book you read, between 250 to 500,000 zebra, and then a couple of 100,000 Thompson's gazelle, with the odd topi thrown in for good measure. They just sort of get caught up in the spirit of things. And then of course you get massive migration. This is not the largest migration by far. One of the largest migrations in the entire world is not any kind of land-based animal, but bats. And whales as well will also migrate in enormous numbers. So no, they're not the only animals that migrate, and I assume you mean in this particular area, in this particular migration. They also bring the zebra and the Thompson's gazelle along with them. I actually haven't seen that many Thompson's gazelle, I have to be honest, at least on this side. And I haven't seen one single crossing with Thompson's gazelle yet. Constant cacophony. I'm going to make my way... Oh! Sorry, before I do, we're in a rush, Lou, because we've shown you the dead one, but there's a live one wandering out of the water. There's a live hippopotamus. Hold on. It's behind you, Ferg. Hold on. I'll make your life slightly easier. It always gives you an amazing sense of scale when you see these creatures out of water. Slow and ponderously moving through the wildebeest. Can you see it yet? You got it. I was going to say, you can't miss it at this point. You know, you always read in books that hippo are solitary feeders at night when they come out to graze. Having driven around here a lot at night, I can tell you that they feed in groups. They feed in groups all the time. Looks like it's limping slightly. Here you go. A sense of scale for you. You should by now have a rough idea of how big a wildebeest is. That is what a hippopotamus looks like next to them. Easily 5 times, no more than. In a big hippopotamus's case, up to 10 times the size of a wildebeest. Hippo doesn't look well at all. It's not moving smoothly. Probably, most likely, a battle for space. It is very dry for this time of year, and it does seem to have a few injuries, and it definitely seems to be limping. There, look at that, fresh scars from a fight, and that is most likely from fighting with another male. You can see the scrapes and puncture wounds. You saw those tusks earlier from the skull that we were looking at. They are capable of inflicting mortal wounds. Ponderously moving through. Shame, hippo. But they are resilient, and remember that the secretions from their skin also carry antibiotic properties, so those injuries are unlikely to fester, and there's a good chance this hippo will survive. As for the rest of the coming months, well, once again, found myself saying that we're in potentially the grips of quite a bad drought here in Kenya. It's much worse up further north, but it's not fantastic here either. Very, very dry. Okay, well, the one animal that has had things very easy at this time of year here in Kenya are the various vulture species, but back in South Africa, Tara has found one of their nest sites.
Welcome back, everybody, and we've just found ourselves the white-back vulture nest, and it's just off of Philman's cut line, and I was hoping we might see signs of the chick. We did actually see one of the other parents flying in, and then it flew out again, and I'm not seeing any movement from the chick at this stage. So both parents actually invest in the chick, so they will fly quite a few kilometers to try and find food and bring it back for the chick, and they will do a bit of a tag team effort. And they'll often use the same nest over several years as well, and it looked like the one from Vulture's Nest Road, actually, that was used for quite a number of years, and that one looks like it's been abandoned, so I'm wondering if this isn't the same pair that's just moved tree. But they're quite a medium-sized vulture. The lappet-faced vulture is even larger than this type of vulture, and they'll eat the softer tissue of a carcass. So I'm sure the chick is in there. It's just we just can't see it at this stage. So you can get them mixed up with the Cape vultures, which are a little bit rarer than the white-backed, but you look for the blue patches on the shoulders. Hi, Strawhead. Welcome on board. Strawhead wanting to know if they will actually hunt live prey or are they just scavengers. And the lappet-faced vulture has been known to hunt live prey, but I've not heard of the white-backed vulture actually going for live prey. But they've got amazing eyesight. I mean, they can fly extremely high, and they will actually watch out for the behaviour of bataliers or tawny eagles to suggest that there's something like a carcass around. So they'll watch them swoop down, and the lappet-faced vultures actually fly even higher than the white-backed vultures, and they will watch the behaviour of other vultures. So it's almost like a little hierarchy system. But the lappet-faced vulture, everyone kind of waits for if there's a big carcass, because they are strong enough to be able to break open the skin and get to the actual meat, especially if it's hardened in the sun. Whereas these type of vultures either have to go for the soft tissue, which is often around the anus, or wait for the lappet-faced vulture to open up the rest of the carcass so they can actually scavenge the meat from inside. So there is a bit of a... Of course, they do have to wait until the lappet-faced vultures have actually had their fill. But they will also grab as much as they can in between. So if the lappet-faced are not paying them any attention, then they can run in, they can grab a piece of meat, swallow it down quickly, and then regurgitate and actually eat it properly. So they'll try and fill their crop quickly. Hi, Reety, asking if the chick feeds on the same as adults, and they actually do. So the adult will come back and regurgitate food for the chick, and so that's why it's a bit of a tag team effort. So one of the parents will go scavenge, come back, and then the other parent will go. So they do invest in this one chick quite heavily, as is the case for many raptors. You tend to get both parents actually rearing the offspring. I did see a little bit of movement actually just below the adult bird. Yeah, you can just about see there is a bit of movement there. Every so often. So we're going to go from a feathered variety animal to a mammal who might be quite interesting to watch.
They are always interesting to watch, Tara. I always find warthogs to be full of character, and particularly this grouping. This is our grouping that we see around twin dams quite often. We're in the Mulawati at the moment, and they've been having a nice snack on the banks of the Mulawati, and shame one of them got a little bit of a fright because it was on the wrong side and had to go screaming over through the sand, and now they're all watching us. So there you can see all the little ones. And the little males there, how many males we've got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 by the looks of it. Remember that most of the time the males will show an extra set of tusks, warts around just above that hair area, and then there will be the warts around the eyes. So you can sex them when they're younger like that. It's not always 100% accurate though, as James once found a warthog here in Djuma that actually female that had those extra set of warts, which is quite unusual. But by the looks of it, most of those young ones are males. So there's particularly all the ones that are facing us. So there's definitely a few males there, and I think there's one female in amongst all of them. Poor girl, she must be having a tough time. And that actually reminds me to all the ladies out there, happy Women's Day today. I don't know if it's celebrated worldwide, but here in South Africa it is Women's Day today, so I hope that you all have a lovely day, and that all the men out there treat you with respect and kindness today. and especially to all of our women here at Safari Live. I hope you guys have had a good day. Now, our warties have all just run off as I kind of turned around, so that's gone. I was hoping that we'd get another little glimpse of them, because it was really cool to watch them, especially those little faces. They're so cute when they're little, and I'm actually looking forward to that, because it's almost time to start seeing baby piglets again. It's not long from now. It's only another 2 or 3 months, and we'll start to see the first little piglets. What is all this commotion about? I wonder if these guys will stay. There's a whole bunch of Franklins that are... Oh, no, they've all run away. Sorry, Craig. Unfortunately, there were Franklins there, but they also decided to go away. Craig, did you shower today, or is this why they're all running away from you? Possibly, that's Craig. It's alright. Well, when we get back, we'll have to make sure that you shower today. Going to carry on through the Mulawati, which means gremlins are going to abound, and so while I quickly fight them off, let's go across to James with his black-headed heron.
It is not black-headed, it is the Goliath. Goliath, everybody, Goliath. It is my mistake. I'm sorry for making it the first time around. We came to the Goliath heron, not in fact a black-headed heron at all, but a Goliath heron. In other words, it's quite big. Good. So now that we've sorted that out, we're going to watch it fish for a little while, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it while you wait for it to catch something useful. If I can find it, of course, on my bird app. Yes, there it is. Right, now, I mean, what you're looking for here, and it's not very clear at all, is the rufous back to the head and neck, and then what immediately alerted me to it from this rather... well, shall we say, less than ideally exposed picture, was the spotting on the front of the neck. So there's quite a lot of spotting there. Now, this bird is large. It is 1.43 meters tall. Excuse me. That makes it exactly 1 foot shorter than me. So it is about 4 feet and 8 inches tall when it's when it's stretching out and standing on its tippy toes. I think it may have... what it's doing there, you can see, is feeling with its feet. Very sensitive feet. And it's just going to see if it doesn't disturb something, or if something doesn't sort of float by, or it's not going to be floating, it's going to be drifting by subsurface. And although this one is eating fish and frogs, they also eat small mammals, up to the size of about a baby wildebeest. That's obviously rubbish. They don't eat anything like the size of a baby wildebeest. When they say small mammals, they mean things like gerbils, mice, rats, that sort of thing. Hamsters, but don't worry, we don't have many hamsters here. So it's not waiting here for a wildebeest crossing so that it can nab a little one. Jacqueline, you say, how tall is it? Well, my whole speech about my height and its height relative indicates that it's about 4 foot 8, 1.43 meters tall is how large it is, and it weighs in at about 9 pounds or so, 4.3 kilograms. And it is the world's largest heron, believe it or not. You have to believe it, because I said it. Isn't that nice? Now, what I want to do is zoom out from the river, and you saw there with Jamie that the river was full. You saw that it was raging in many parts over the... oh, there's our elephant. You saw it was raging in many parts over those rapids, and it has definitely come up. And when we were asked this question, in fact, can we go to Main North? Let's go and have just a quick look there. We were asked the question a little while back. Can we go to Main North? Hello? There we are, well done, beautiful. Right, Main North, there we go. And we were asked the question a little while back as to whether or not the rains had stopped, and I confidently told you that the long rains end in June, and so no, there was going to be no more rain, and therefore the river was unlikely to come up anymore. Well, I told an absolute untruth, and that's simply because I didn't really understand this ecosystem. As you can see very clearly from there, if you look up above the river, there is clearly a lot of moisture in the sky. We've had a huge amount of rain this week. On Sunday, in fact, Fergus and I spent until about 11 o'clock at night trying to escape from 2 or 3 enormous storms out in the field. So that was quite, we did one segment into the show and then we had to run for our lives. And there has been a lot of rain, and what that's done is bring the river up, definitely. And I'm sure it's not only here that there's rain, because of course those clouds that you can see there are not going to affect the water levels of the water that you can see here. But up in the Mao Escarpment, I imagine there's a lot of rain falling. And that's why we have this sort of situation here. Let's go back to Main South, if we can, to have a look at the heron, who has been standing dead still and not caught anything at all. I'm sure he will at some stage. But, you know, they're infinitely patient, these things, infinitely more patient than someone like I. Hello, John. You're wondering if herons can swim if they're able to. Well, I mean, in so much as someone like I can swim, I suppose. I don't think they'd sink to the bottom and drown, but I think that they'd probably flap around a lot and look very inelegant. So, yes, a little bit like a human being doing the dog paddle. They wouldn't be able to swim very effectively, but I don't think they'd drown. They'd almost certainly float, and because they spend so much time in water, you can be very sure that their feathers would be very well waterproofed. They'll have a lot of oil on them, and so I suppose they could drown if that oil was insufficiently kept, what shall we say, insufficiently kept in trim, if you like, or kept in place by regular preening. Then I suppose the feathers could become, what is the word I'm searching for here? It's not inundated. A sponge becomes what? Saturated. Thank you, Louise. It becomes saturated, and then it would, of course, sink like a stone. Well, perhaps a little slower than that. So no, I don't think swimming is their strong point, but they could do it. There's a wagtail, pied wagtail. Let's go and have a look there. Hello, wagtail. Very nice. And he'll be looking for little insects, and all around the water, of course, and in fact around every single bush, as we've always told you on Bushwalk, every single little plant here and little tidal, or what should we say, tidal inlet here is a source of food for all sorts of creatures. It's a source of life for small plants and vertebrates, and eventually up to the size of these birds. And they'll all be eating something slightly different, and that's how they all survive together. There will most certainly be some overlap, but that's how they manage to live together. Isn't that cool? Oh, there's a 3-shot, everybody. We've got, in fact, when that martin flaps in front of the camera, we've got a 4-shot. A 4-shot of martin, there we go. A wagtail, a Goliath heron. Oh, that would look like a canary, and, of course, the elephant in the background. Let's go across to him. Oh, James, you want to know how big of a fish the heron can take down? I mean, I think take down is possibly the wrong word, given that the fish is already down. I think you'll find that the maximum size fish is probably, I would guess, if he's about 4'8", the size of his beak, sitting at around 3/4 of a foot. I'm going to say a fish probably about just over a foot, maybe 1 foot and 1 foot and 2 inches. I would say that's probably about the size. I'll just see if I can find some information on that. But it doesn't say necessarily that it doesn't give me any sizes here of the fish that they caught. No, here we go. Most fish between 150 and 500 millimeters. So 500 millimeters is half a meter, which of course is 1.5 feet. So it's 1 foot, well, just under that. So about 1 foot and 4 inches is the longest one. Now that's most of them, so they will catch bigger ones, and exceptionally up to the size 1.5 kilograms. That is 4 pounds of feech. That's quite a lot of feech. I'm not sure I could eat a 4-pound feech. Right, Jamie is still on the banks of the northern Mara River near Chitwa, hopefully not about to get rained upon by that rain, so let's go back to her now.
I hope not. It looks as though the weather's going to hold out for a little while longer. We're not going to dash for safety, but these wildebeest might. Once again, oh, here we go. Back we go. Once again, they followed the zebra down to the water's edge. The zebra went away, and the wildebeest now don't know what to do. And back up they go. It's like they forget that the river's there. They follow the zebra and then go, uh-oh. There's a big body of water. And then, while the front runners have realised that, the rest of them are all still following behind, pushing up from behind and going, what's going on? Why has everybody stopped? And then they stand around looking confused for a while, make some confused gnuing noises, and then back they go on their next strange mission. I didn't actually pay any attention to what the weather was doing. Seems as though there is a storm blowing in. I think we'll be okay though. Let's go forward a bit. Oh, hello. All peering down at us. Hopefully our signal should be okay here. Now what? And we all go back again. And off to our left, the zebras stand there looking innocent, as if to say, who, us? Lead the wildebeest? Never. This would definitely not be a very good place to cross. So I think these zebra worked out for themselves. Oh, nobody panic. One thing I keep thinking is, I know there are leopards along the Mara River that capitalize on the migration and these crossings. I wonder what the chances are. This is not a good place for a crossing. This side's fine. That side is not. That is not possible. No matter how nimble the wildebeest may be. I'm going to follow these zebra. It seems to be what the wildebeest are doing. Perhaps they know something I don't. Oh, there's still more coming. And they're now all stampeding back behind me. Never mind. Where's everybody going? Okay. Let's go round back to where we started off the afternoon safari. Back to the rapids and the crossing points, and let's just have a look at what's happening on the opposite side of the bank. Because a lot of the time the animals tend to respond to each other, calling on the opposite sides. This is very pretty though. Just quickly, just a quick view of the Mara River. It is so beautiful. This is definitely one of the prettiest spots. Enjoying the view of the Mara River, Tara is about to take you to one of the prettier places on Djuma.
Oh, do you know what? I'd love to see Jamie's hat. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it looks brilliant. Welcome back everybody. We're just scanning down through a drainage line here on our left on Weaver's Nest Road. There's no tracks coming out of the block. There's quite a few vehicles in that area. Someone's already checking out Treehouse Dam. I think they'll be making their way to water, or will be in the cooler drainage line, because it is quite nice, but it is very warm. So that's where my money is, that they're in one of those drainage lines or by the water. But as I say, we've got quite a lot of eyes out, so we're just all scanning the bush paper, seeing if there's any sign of where they might have gone. And we'll do another loop back around towards Zoe's, Rebecca's, see if we can't find them coming out. So I don't know if anyone came back about the gestation of the Steenbok, just to remind me. We did. Richard saying about 170 days. So yeah, I think that's about what I was saying, about 5 or 6 months. Ah, so the old grey matter still works. This is good to know. Thanks, Richard. So, heading towards Chelapan. I think it was quite dry, but it's quite thick bush around here. But we'll head up towards Voyatella Dam and, as I say, cut back round onto Zoe's, Rebecca's, just in case they have slipped by and we haven't seen any of the tracks. Did I just see movement through there? I thought I saw movement. Oh, I did see movement. There's somebody there, but what is it? It's another Steenbok, I think. Yes, there we go, another Steenbok. We've actually been seeing quite a few Steenbok, and I think because the vegetation has died back a bit, we're able to see them just that little bit clearer. God, that was a good spot, guys. Oh, there's some crossing. We've got some tracks on the road. So still just reading the paper. We'll see. These are usually really nice pans, especially during the summer. Now, when I first started, these were very small, and all it takes is a little puddle in the ground to form, and then maybe a warthog will come along and maybe roll in the mud and wallow, maybe the hyena, and then you might get the odd buffalo or rhino or elephant to also roll in the mud, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you get this huge mud wallow. They'll then become larger pans, and then maybe eventually small pools. But this is going to be a lovely spot, and you can see the elephants have already been around here. You can see all the dung here, and there's a few elephant tracks actually mixed in around there as well, and I see there's one or two buffalo tracks that have dried. But really quite amazing to see how big this has got over the past, what, four years or so. So these used to be very shallow when I was first guiding here. So we're heading towards Chelapan. Oh, and there we go. Actually, let me just show you the elephant scratching post opposite the mud wallow. For those you might not have seen an elephant scratching post, that's quite nice. You can really see how far up the mud is. So when they put the mud on their bodies, that helps to keep them cool, but it also helps to protect their skin, especially animals like the rhinos and the elephants and the warthogs. But it also allows the mud to be caked in the body, and then it will fill in the cracks, and it will also attach any parasites to it as well. So as the animal rubs off the mud, once it's dried, it will actually pull out the parasites as well. So it's got many different properties about it, and as I say, I think the animals seem to have a wonderful time. It's really quite hysterical to see a rhino or a buffalo rolling in the mud, and they actually kick themselves right over, so they actually roll over like a little puppy dog, and they just seem to have absolute fun in the mud. And especially on a very hot day, it really does look like you want to just join them in there. So, very nice to see. So we're going to carry on around. I'm still not picking up any leopard tracks, but as I say, hopefully plenty of other things to find as well. Maybe some elephants. seems as they have left a lot of their dung around. Oh, I'm very, very jealous, James. I would love to see what you guys are about to see. It's been a long time. Enjoy the Goliath Heron, everybody.
Well, yes, it probably has been a long time, but Tara, if you bide your time, you will see a Goliath Heron there at Djuma. Obviously, you know that. Now, this heron, I think, may have eaten a fish. I have to confess to you that I have not been watching it full time while you've been away. I've been watching many of the other cameras, and indeed watching the rest of the drive. And this heron is either not feeling very well, or is perhaps suffering from the effects of a lot of scales that have got stuck in its throat. I'm not sure which. Anyway, there he is. Hardly moved a muscle since we last saw you. There is our elephant friend. Let's go and have a look and see what he's doing. And I will also show you the extent to which the storm has moved from where you last saw it. Let's have a look at him there. He looks like a bit of a lonely fellow for some reason. I'm not sure why I say that. Of course, elephants are supposed to be alone when they're this age and old. But he just looks a bit mournful. Yes, you do. And Jessica, you wanted to see one of the big five. Well, Jessica, I'm going to say goody. I'm glad we've managed to show you one of the big five. And then I'm going to say to you, please, if you can avoid it, don't ever use the term again. And I'll tell you why. It's a term, I think, that is, well, slightly disrespectful to all the African wildlife out here, and I'll tell you why. And I don't mean to chastise or scold you at all. I'm just going to tell you where it comes from. It comes from an old hunting term, and it described the animals that were the most dangerous to hunt. So if your bent is to come into an area like this and destroy wildlife, well, that's basically where it comes from. So, you know, we still use it a lot in tourism and in photographic tourism, and in fact we use it on this show from time to time. But for me it's a term that I think should have gone out with the practice of slavery, frankly. And now, better perhaps is the term high-profile game. So this is a high-profile animal. It's obviously an animal that everyone wants to see for good reason. It's a keystone species. It's big, it's magnificent, it's beautiful. It's well, it is certainly threatened by human activities. And so included in the high-profile game, we would include elephants, obviously. We'd include both species of rhino that we get here. We'd include lions and leopards, and what's the other one I'm missing out? Buffalo as well. Those were the traditional big five. But then we'd also include things like cheetah and wild dog and hippo, which are all high profile again, and all iconic species that people want to come and see. And you know, when people used to come on safari with me, and I'd say, well, as we sat down to tea over a very nice piece of homemade chocolate cake and some coffee, delicious, makes my mouth water thinking of it, I'd say, well, what do you want to see while you're here? And many people, because they'd been sold down the big five route by their travel agents, I mean, that's where it comes from largely these days, would say, we want to see the big five. And I'd say, but don't you want to see giraffe? And they'd say, oh, yes, of course we want to see giraffe. And I'd say, but they're not part of the big five, aren't they? No, they're not. And don't you want to see wild dogs and cheetah and kudu and all those special creatures that are not part of the big five? So I've kind of waffled on at you now about why I don't use the term big five, but perhaps you will choose either to continue using it or perhaps heed what I've said. I'm not sure. Let's head across to Main North now. And what we will find at Main North is that the storm, you can see, is moving around, but it is definitely going great guns in the far north of the reserve. There it is. Oh, that looks quite scary. So if I was down there, I'd be pretty nervous. Now I'll point the camera in the direction of where Jamie is. She's around about there. just over the top of those trees. So you can see how isolated the storms are. Yes, of course it's building above her, but in fact it's not building above her at all. So that's obviously in front of her. And in fact, if we go to the mountain cam, can we go to mountain cam? And it just takes a little while to figure out all the controls. There we go. Well done, Louise. We're going to go across to where Jamie is. I'll show you now. Let's go up a bit. You can see a little speck of white there. That basically is the area. Oh, in fact, you can see 1,000 cars. That's exactly where Jamie is. She's around there. That's where the crossing is. And you can see, oh, there's a bird flying across there. You can see all of those thousands of wildebeest covering the plains there. And that is round about where Jamie is. So you can see there's still sun in that region, which is very nice. Isn't that wonderful? Ian, you say how many wildebeest cross the river each year? Ian, I'm going to give you a wild guess, because I'm not sure that anyone has ever actually calculated it. If I look at the map, and I wonder if we can do this. We probably can, as long as I don't actually appear myself on the screen, because I have to tell you that I'm looking a little dishevelled today. How's that, Louise? Is that in focus? Right, there is the map, everybody. Please excuse my camera work. And what we can see there, can you see that river that cuts basically, just on top of the black arrows there, you can see a river. That river, of course, cuts the entire, here we go, look at this, everybody, looking slightly less dishevelled. We have Mr. Espen de Boer. There he is. No, not that one, the top one, the Mara, if we don't mind. There we go. You can see the Mara, the Mara River and the Sand River there absolutely cut off the line of migration. And so what that means is that all of the wildebeest that come into the triangle or into the Masai Mara must cross a river. And if it's not the if it's not the Mara River and the Sand River, it will be the Grumeti to the south of that. There we go, you can see, there it is. So they must cross a river, and so I'm going to say, therefore, that 1.5 million wildebeest must cross a river at one or other time during the course of the migration. So, you know, as many wildebeest as there are, that's how many are going to migrate. All right, let's go back to the river. Well done. I shall endeavour everybody next time to look slightly less dishevelled than I am. I'm wearing a T-shirt. Can you believe it? Alrighty, so that's what's going on there. The elephant has now decided he is going to leave. He's had enough. And the heron, uber patient, waiting for a catfish, I suspect, to swim into his feet, whereupon he'll stab it. And that's all that's going on in the rivers, I'm afraid. And you can see still plenty of grass the other side, so I think those wildebeest are going to come back. And just behind this crossing today, there were thousands and thousands of wildebeest knocking about the place. But nothing here at the moment. All right, let's go across to cul-de-sac crossing, where I think we've got a few... No, Louise, that is a dusty crossing, my dear. We've got about 500 controls mixed up. And there we got hippos, and normally there are lots of crocodiles lurking around here somewhere, but not at the moment, which I suppose there's... No, that's not. That's a bit of floating debris. And you know, about 2 weeks ago, Steph narrated and saw a quite horrific scene here where wildebeest were falling into the water on top of themselves, on top of each other, and it littered about 50 bodies in this little bay. And that's all been cleaned up by the crocodiles and the catfish, and probably just the action of sun and water on rotting flesh. Isn't that cheerful? Anyway, that's why I would never put my face in this water and drink out of it. You would get probably quite sick. And although, you know, we tend to think of rivers and flowing water as being much cleaner than... Oh, I wonder if that chap's not looking at a lion. Let's go and have a look. Oh, he's looking at the crocs there. We tend to think of rivers and or flowing water as being cleaner than stagnant water. There are also some white-faced whistling ducks there. That's not always the case at all. You'll find in many instances that flowing water like this is very dirty to drink because, of course, so many animals come down to it and drink in it. As you've seen with the buffalo at Djuma, they have absolutely no compunction whatsoever about going to the loo in the water, and so there's a lot of muck flowing down in amongst the silt and water of the Mara River. And if you're going to drink out of it, you need to have a very, well, shall we say, hyena-like, in fact, Brent Leo Smith-like level of digestive juices. Apparently we're going to stay here. I think we have 1 or 2 issues with signal. Anyway, that's fine. We can do that. There's lots going on at this crossing. Let's look beyond there. There we go. Some more hippopotami. Now, there are some pretty good prospects, I think, in the Sabi sand for finding Tingana mating with Tundi, so let's go and find out how that search is going.
But give you a chance. Now, I wonder if James Henry reckons, after I watched him collect water in the Mulawati a few months ago for happiness, he collected a nice big dirty bottle of water, and I wonder which one he thinks would be worse for you, the Mara River water or the water of the Mulawati. I feel like the Mulawati at least had a bit of filtering process through the sand and wasn't really that stagnant. It had been dug up by elephants and was kind of bubbling up from the undergrowth, so I wonder if he thinks that would be better than the one that is at the Mara River. Now, we have been in the Mulawati, we've been gremlin filled and they've been all over us, but it was a beautiful drive as we tried to make our way out. Lots of big trees in the Mulawati and sunshine and birds and happiness, really. It's one of those drives when you drive through there that makes you very happy. Now, there is something on the other side of our drainage line that I don't think we've seen this afternoon. Have we seen them this afternoon? We saw them this morning, I know that. But there are some very elegant kudu that are walking on the other side there. It looks like a little baby in amongst them that's trying to see over the back of everybody else and see what's going on. There it is, in amongst all of the adults and the sub-adult males. You can see the sub-adult male there with his horns that have come out. So he'll be just over a year old. And they're stopping and listening now because I've stopped and they can hear me talking, and they're just checking around, making sure that there isn't a predator somewhere associated with the position that I'm in, and that's why those ears are working and all looking in different directions. You might find also that somewhere in the drainage line might be a nyala or a bushbuck or something like that that's walking down below, and that's also why they're looking over their shoulder into that area. But they are some of the most beautiful animals. I really like that striping pattern that they've got and those big muscular shoulders that they use to be able to jump and to get away from prey, from predators by jumping over them. I've even seen them jump over a lion, actually, which was quite something. So the lions had set up a perfect ambush, and then the kudu got chased towards them, and as it was at that point where the lioness looked like she was about to grab it, she was standing dead in front. This kudu female just jumped straight to actually escape. It was really quite something, and there was a set of pictures going around for a while of a big male kudu that jumped over a set of lions on a road somewhere, which was quite phenomenal to see. So they really are very athletic animals, and that comes down to that massive big muscular structure around the shoulder blades and neck area that allows them to be able to get the force to lift such a heavy body over such a tall animal. Well, not tall, but a jumping lion. So you'll find that these guys are very interesting when they do that. But I love how their ears also move and act just like satellite dishes. It's always quite interesting to watch them as they maneuver themselves around. And so Tamara, you agree with the loving of the ears? You say you love kudu and especially the ears. The ears are very cool on a kudu. They look almost Mickey Mouse like, don't they? The way that they look at you, and then these big rounded ears that come off. And I like the white dots and bit of facial markings that they have. Now, that white that you see between the eyes is not there for show. It's all there to help with a bit of light into the eyes. Remember that kudu spend a lot of their time in dense, thick undergrowth, like what we see on the edges of these drainage lines, and so it's often shady and dark in there, and that white just helps to bring a little bit of extra light into the eye. And you see it on things like lion and leopard, which just aids in a bit of the vision. Unfortunately, though, they are disappearing. They do camouflage very well in these thickets, and that's why they spend a lot of time here. So we're going to carry on as well. Our kudu are disappearing. Right, it's that time of the day that it's leopard or lion time. I have a good feeling that between Tara and myself we are going to find one of the cats. It's that time of the day that you get that feeling that they are starting to wake up. It's cooling off a little bit, sun's getting low. It just feels that perfect time for a leopard. As Seb always tells me at this time of the day is where he says it's leopard time. So let's go with Seb's saying, and hopefully we will be able to find one of the cats this afternoon. It's been a really good run. We've had cats pretty much most drives, and I'm so glad that Tara got the leopards this morning, and hopefully she'll be able to find another one at some stage this afternoon. I think I'm going to try and concentrate more on the lions now than the leopards and see if I can't get into that area. I've put it off for long enough this afternoon, and it's probably because this morning when I was following tracks all morning I got a little bit of a headache from following all of these tracks, so hopefully it will be better this afternoon. I think subconsciously I'm putting it off just because I don't really want to follow tracks all afternoon and for nothing. So I'm hoping that now that it's cooled down, maybe they'll start to move a little bit, make their way up towards Buffelshoek Dam for a drink, and we'll find them all lounging on the dam wall. Wouldn't that be quite nice? So that's the plan, and that's where we're going to aim to get to. Of course, plans don't always work out the way you want. Ooh, Snazzy, you want to know what my favorite season is? Well, Snazzy, difficult here because our spring and our autumn or fall are very short. We don't have a very long one. They're normally about 3-4 weeks and then they're done. So difficult to really count those as a part of our seasons. But for me, my favorite time of the year would be that transition and that going from spring to summer, that quick process that we have here in the Sabi Sands, when we start to see everything going from this drab brown starting to turn a nice bright green color, and you're getting all these different layers of green throughout the trees and the grass. You start to see all the insects, the migratory birds come back, baby animals start to come out, so you see a lot of baby impalas and baby bushbuck and nyala and kudu, and it really makes for a sort of experience and a feel that everything is just bursting with life, and I love that. So that's my favorite time of the year as we transition out of the winter and into the summer. So I would say spring, if you want to call it that, although it's more like a extended summer, the beginning part of summer, that I enjoy. I know it does get hot here, and a lot of other guys will disagree with me and they'll say winter because the sightings are better, but there's just something about having big thunderstorms and life abounding everywhere around you that really makes me quite happy. So that's my favorite time of the year. Craig, what about you? You don't know? Summer. You're also a summer kid. Craig's from Durban, so he probably dreads summer because of the amount of humidity that you get in a Durban summer. It's not very pleasant at all. It's about 90% humidity down there, so it gets quite warm in that side of the world. So I'd imagine maybe spring. Is spring not better, Craig? Summer's still good. It's because you go surfing and you go and do your thing, that's why. I suppose if you're in the ocean, it's not really, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside. Right, now this is the road where we had the last tracks for these lions. Whether or not we're going to find them is anyone's guess because, well, it's not an easy place to be able to spend too much time, time tracking, because there's long grass and it's hard roads and hard areas, but we'll try our best and see what we can find. But I believe Tara has pipped me to the post again this afternoon, and she's managed to pull out one of the cats.
Ew, it is just like the buses, isn't it? And I'm so glad that we have got rid of our leopard drought, and it's lovely to catch up with Thamba, who is Tandy's cub, almost a year old. So we did have Tandy first thing this morning mating with Tingana. Now what's interesting is myself and Tristan were actually discussing this over breakfast, trying to work out why she might be mating even though she has a cub that's dependent, and I did ask Tristan if he'd seen her with Thamba recently, and it was a couple of days ago, so he is still with her, he's still interacting with her, still dependent on her. So it could possibly be, because unfortunately there's not a lot of literature out there, because leopards are so elusive, believe it or not. We're very lucky here in the Sabi Sands that the sands have been a game reserve since decades ago, so they've gotten used to people, movement, vehicles over quite a long period of time, so they're actually a lot more relaxed around vehicles than what leopards are in other parts of the country. So we're now starting to learn more about leopard behaviour, because we are actually able to witness it, whereas in years gone by what's been written in books is literally from one person in one place, and that's snapshots of their lives. So I think I'm going to leave you with that thought, and I'll discuss a little bit more when you come back.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tara, but I've finally found some signal. I've been sitting here since I last left you. Just a few moments after that, I came around the corner to be watching the biggest crossing I have seen in my time in the Mara. I don't know how many wildebeest have crossed here, thousands of them, and they're still pushing through across the banks against the tide. Obviously not all of them have made it, and they started up a little bit further upstream, and I just couldn't find any signal to show you it. And then luckily one of the vehicles moved away, and we were able to nick his spot, and we've managed. So there you go, the crossing that we've been waiting for all afternoon. This is the best view that we can get of it, apparently. And obviously you can see that some of the wildebeest haven't made it. A couple of them have drowned in the course of this. This is exactly, oh, you can see how incredibly unlucky some of them have been. They've just taken slightly the wrong path and got caught in the currents. And this is where it becomes really difficult for them. All the little ones, not as tall, not as heavy, not as strong as the adults. Oh, baby. Come on, you can do it. It's not too deep. You just have to find your footing and then you'll be okay.